So I'm actually going to be building a very interesting family. I'm
Yeah.
just I'm just talking right now before the meeting starts. I don't know if you can see this little tiny wheel right here. It says they're going to let me in whenever they start it. So it must start exactly on time. But after they finish up, we're going to try to build this thing here, which is a rather interesting situation that I think could be very beneficial for us. So looks like we're starting.
Recording in progress.
And were you able to hear it say recording in progress?
Yeah.
I would imagine the two guys with the cameras are who we're going to be hearing. I don't have a way to check the volume. So once they start talking, you got to tell me if you can hear it or not. I might be able to adjust it a little. I don't think I can. Let's see what happens. She should probably start talking.
So I'll put my thumbs up if I can hear it, okay? If you don't see
Uh,
me.
well, you can just chime in and say I can hear it. That'll be great for me. Just unmute
Okay.
and say I can hear it when you hear them talking. They're not talking yet, so this is all the people checking in. They have some check-in website where you can do stuff and you can have see the info to share. Can you see that right here? Info to share. You see that? So we could actually join by doing that. Now, I'm not doing that right now. See, there's a lot of people putting questions in. You see how they're going down the. Can you hear that?
To give it to viewers, the visitors, or if it starts repeating.
Good.
I think Dana's internet must have gone again. So
I can't even hear it.
Jason, would you mind? Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Bimxt online July event. Our host just hopped off. She will be back on. I think she was having some internet issues. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our tip of the month. I'm going to let Noah take it away, and then Dana should be back shortly.
Okay, I think we're skipping tip of the month because
Hey, Mikey, they're just starting.
All about tips.
Perfect.
So it's a bunch of tips coming your way. I'm going to go ahead and well, let's see if who's currently sharing their screen. Is it Dana?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, let's replace current share. Okay. All right, there we go. So welcome everyone. My name is Noah Harberger. I am the BIM manager for Ayer St. Gross. We are a multidiscipline firm out of Baltimore. We have locations in DC and Arizona as well, with a focus on higher ed design. But I'm going to be talking today about tips and tricks for Revit families. So let's just dive right on in. That's what you're here for. So first thing we're going to talk about.
Can you guys hear it all right?
Is in-place families.
Yeah.
And
Good.
how you can swap them out and convert them into component families.
Now you can get punched in the nose if you ever do that. Oh, by the way, we're live streaming, so.
Sorry, got
In-place families, what do you guys think?
Okay. In-place families can cause a lot of bloat in your model. They only represent a single instance of a thing in your model, but people invariably will create them only for someone, even the person who created them, to come back in and start copying them all over the place, cluttering up your model with these identical looking, but not actually identical one-off families. But we can convert them. So let's talk about how we do that. It is not letting me click. There we go. Okay. So what we want to do is actually create an in-place family because we're going to convert it. I'm just going to make a furniture family. We're going to make a table, call it my table, and just make a couple of extrusions here. You should know if you ever made any families, anything around it, if you're using the pick line, you should be able to hover over a path that is there and tab to select like this.
Sometimes,
Not clicking one line at a time.
sometimes, not if it's in a step file, not if it's an AutoCAD file. Come on.
Make this table nice and simple, nothing too fancy. But you'll see here we've made this in place family, and as soon as I finish the model, you'll see that this family appears in the project browser as my table. As soon as I finish, though, we have all these handles. You don't want, it's one of the flaws of in-place families. Everything is flexible because it's a one-of-a-kind thing. And as soon as we copy it, it does not make a copy of my table. It makes my table one. And it just gets worse and worse. So what we're going to do to convert, go into edit mode, select the geometry,
And go to
and we're going
copy
to create
and paste it
a
in a
model
model.
group from all the geometry that is in your family. I'm just going to call this group table. And now you can see group exists. It exists in the in-place family, not in the project. So you have to be in edit mode in order to access that group. And from the browser, you can right-click on the group and hit Save Group. And then you can save this out as an RFA, as a Revit family. Once you do that, once you've saved it out, we're going to call this component, if I can spell, component.
I feel your pain, brother.
We can then load that component into your project. So architecture, component, load a component, component table. And it's going to be identical to the in-place family you made because you copied and pasted the geometry. But unlike the in-place family, you're not creating all these duplicate families in your browser as you move it around, because that's how families work. So there you go.
That's terrible. I can do 10 times better than that. I can't believe that's even a solution.
Families where you have set
We'll cover that.
the family parameter to cut with voids when loaded. So there's a couple things here to talk about. When we all know that there's wall-hosted families, ceiling-hosted, floor-hosted, and one of the problems with those types of elements is, one, it can only host to one element. So in the example below with this corner window, sure, we can use a curtain wall and approximate a curtain window. But if you're trying to place a product in, like any other window in your building, and you want it to cut multiple walls, a wall-hosted family or a face-hosted family can only cut the
That's
host
wrong.
element.
That's incorrect.
You just work plane based one and set cut with voids when loaded, and you have a void in your family. Anything in the model can then be cut with the void from their family. So the example I'm going to give here is
I thought the same thing. He's wrong.
Lights, okay.
Oh, I'm so
Most
excited.
projects have like thousands of these throughout. And every single instance of can light, if you're doing it ceiling hosted or face hosted, is likely cutting a hole in your ceiling. And that's a ton of extra geometry that you don't really need in your model for most places. There's probably a few places that you're going to be doing renderings, and you definitely need the hole cut in the ceiling there for the light to come through and to be able to see things right. So if we do it this way and make a work plane based family that cuts with voids when loaded, I'm going to leave always vertical checked because it's a
No, this is really a bad solution.
So keeping it vertical at all times is fine. But we're going to check the cut with voids when loaded so that the ceiling can be cut when we want it to be with the family. So this is just going to be a simple 6-inch can light made with a couple extrusions, just one for the cylindrical body and then one for the lens. just make this like 8 inches tall, and the lens, we're going to have it like be recessed a little so it's not flush with the plane of the ceiling, so you can actually see a difference there between ones that have cut the ceiling and haven't. So we'll set this.
Were you on when I was talking about this, Mike?
Half inch.
Every object cuts. What he's doing, absolutely. You don't
And
need
I'm
to
gonna
do
go
cut
ahead
and void. I'm going to
make
show
a
you
custom
where he's
material
wrong
for
with this.
That is
Gotcha.
a self-illuminated lens. So you can't double click on the name, and you got to right click and say rename, and make a light source. When you're creating new materials, make sure you are using unique assets for it, and not just using the same asset that other materials are using. Otherwise, you make a change to one and it applies.
He just changed the generic. If he goes back to the default material, he just changed it to light source. He just messed that file up.
And check self-illumination and set the luminance to frosted bulb, just as a starting point. You can always get more.
He's just trying to show off the stuff about the software, but that part of the software doesn't even really work because it's going into tween motion
But if we create
to get rendered. No one's rendering in Revit.
all of the geometry we made. So we're going to make just a regular extrusion that is the size and shape of the void.
And you're going to make that a void
Tall
object.
cylinder here. That's what's going to cut the ceiling. And then we're going to change that from a solid to a void.
Yeah, he did not need to check on cuts with voids. He doesn't understand what that checkbox means. So that means most of this discussion is a little bit funny.
We can go ahead and save this family out.
I love to see that he's in Revit 2026 and using the white background. The black background sucks.
And now it's going to behave very much like a face-based light. You can place it on a face. It will be hosted to that face if you select that option. Or you can host it to a work plane. So we're going to do the face-based because we want it to move with the ceiling. And you can see here, you're not seeing that white lens of the light in any of these that's being cut. Right? If you still, because it's face-based, you could put it in the wall, but we had that always vertical box checked. So that's the difference here.
No, and that doesn't work either.
Create a family that can go on any face and adapt. You'll want to check that. All right, so now we've got.
He just told you to do something that absolutely does not work in Revit.
So there's no reason there. But if a few of these are lights that are in a room that we want to render, we want to cut the ceiling.
He's doing all this for a rendering, and no one renders in Revit.
Click on the ceiling, click on the
I'm going to
light,
push this whole library into twin motion, and it's going to look like a showroom.
in place.
Why would you
care about for rendering
My
or
goodness
adding this
gracious.
additional geometry of the void cutting?
That was the cutting. And he did not need to do with cut with voids. That's not what that statement
All right,
means.
Next thing we're going to talk about is using a material from a project in a family. If you've ever tried to copy something from a project into a family, you always get the error message. You can't copy content from a project into a family. However, if you make an in-place family, while in edit mode of that family, it treats things there as a family. So create an in-place family.
So why did you make the group earlier? Why didn't you just take that geometry into a generic model that you turned into furniture and had your table on a furniture? Why do you want someone to be in a group? That doesn't make any sense.
Just to be clear, I know you can always add a material parameter to your family to control the material there, but this is for things where you don't want people editing the material. A chair that's always going to have aluminum legs that you want to be aluminum and you don't want anybody messing with. You want the specific aluminum that all is in the project so that everybody isn't picking a slightly different aluminum.
I showed you this trick 14 years ago. Do you remember this one, Mike?
Once again, with all these needless.
You just copy the name, you duplicate the material, give it the same name, push it in the project, and it'll have all the assets appropriated.
Catalogs.
That's right.
Probably seen these if you've ever brought a structural member.
And
into
this
your project.
absolutely doesn't work. Travis and I were talking about this morning.
Wide flange beams when you only need like 3 in your project. But the same thing goes with cabinets, windows, diffusers, drains. There's lots of families that can benefit from creating a type catalog. My rule of thumb is it should have at least 6 types or more to be worth creating a catalog.
He's forgetting to tell you 90% of the people don't know how to use a type catalog. So let's see if he shows you how to truly use it.
But none of the different types in that family.
Because I know you struggle with that one for a while.
All of the types with all of the.
Do you know how to use a type catalog?
That are affected.
It's been a
by
while.
You
So
got to
now-
put the text file in the same folder with the Revit family, and you can't drag the thing from the Windows browser. You have to say load family.
Hmm.
Just to give an example of how this is working. So you select the dimensions, apply the parameters from the label options.
And he's going to show you how to go up there in a file and export a family catalog.
This
Mhm.
family template didn't have a height.
That's what
We're
he's
gonna
about
click
to
the button
do.
to create a new height parameter. And again, we're going to make sure this is a type parameter, not instance, because we're creating type catalogs. And we only right now care about those parameters that are type parameters. So again, pick tool with the lock checked so that you don't have to then go back and align lock everything you're clicking and trim it up to get your extrusion.
You don't need to lock any of those. That thing would have worked without the lock.
You pull the top up and lock it.
That's funny.
So now we got a box that's
It's
fully
amazing.
constrained to our reference planes. Our reference planes are controlled by our dimensions, parameters.
So they're
Now we can
still
export
teaching incorrectly. And I'm telling you, this is now the largest.
file.
Well,
text
this
file,
is
named
Bimxt.
the same as the family. That's important. It needs to be named the same as the family. So we have a box.rfa.
Right?
And a
There's the
box.txt.
TXT file has to
Open
be in the
this
same
box.txt,
location.
see a notepad. This is not something I'm going to be trying to edit here. It's a little complicated. It's a lot easier.
A lot complicated.
Open in Excel. You open the TXT file in Excel. It knows it's a delimited file. There's a character that's separating things.
Yeah,
in the
sort of.
fields. We see there's commas.
Good idea.
And we have headers. So we're going to click the My Headers and click commas on the next page, and that will generate an actual spreadsheet we can use.
Oh, it's a beauty.
So by default, it names that first type the name of the family. We can replace that with whatever type name.
Misty,
you want.
remember when we
It's gonna
duplicated
fill this
that
in.
family and then
It's gonna
created the type
just
catalog?
indicative of the dimensions that the box.
See here, he's saying we could have filled all that information in
The dimensions
right here
are
in
decimal.
this Excel file,
So we
and
are
then all those types
pull
would be available
here in this example,
in the project through the type catalog. We went backwards. We made the family, created the type catalog from it. But his thinking is it's easier to fill that information in here. And it would be if you think about some of the stuff we did.
in order to get the values correct.
You know, we just kept going up 2 inches so you could use the Excel benefit of being able to drag and go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
We're not going to save it as an Excel spreadsheet. Revit doesn't know how to read an Excel spreadsheet.
You have to save it as a text.
That same thing, that delimited file, we're going to save this as a CSV, comma, delimited file. And that'll convert this Excel spreadsheet
How does it
back
become a
into that
text?
same text-based version. But we still need to change the extension. So
Oh, you dirty dog!
Anymore.
All right, it was worth showing up.
We're changing.
You can't name that to TXT. There's already one there, bud. It's going to give you a problem.
Be able to read it. Yes, sure, we want to change it. All right, so back into Revit. We go into our project, and we are not loading the family we created directly.
I don't think this is going to work.
Going into the project.
I think there's only going to be one type.
Here.
No,
That's
there.
important. You need to load the family directly into the project from its file location.
You must hit
for
yes,
the
overwrite.
catalog to come up. That way you can pick just the ones you want. You don't need to.
Now you've
all
loaded the
and types
file.
that we never created in the family itself are now available, named as we want with the parameter values we want.
Oh, I see a benefit.
That's how to use type catalogs and create them.
I see a benefit. That's cool.
Next thing we are going to look at are families that can scale.
I didn't know you could do that.
Almost every
CSV to
family in Revit
TXT.
has
Who would have ever thought
using
that?
Parameter to determine how tall.
You have to
the family is.
rename the extension
But
of the
adjusting the
file.
parameter is not going to scale the family.
These are the planting
If you
families.
have a family that you want to have a variety of sizes for, but you want it to be scaled proportionally, you can utilize the one family template that does have this functionality, and that's the planting template.
All right, teach me something
So,
here, buddy. I
create a
really
new
want
family.
you to.
Using the planting family template. And we're going to be saving this, whatever the family is. I'm using this example as a board game piece, a meeple. So I'm going to call this meeple subnest. And we're calling it subnest because we're going to have.
You have to do it twice because the thing's broken. That's
A
why.
family that's nested into that, and this family here sub-nested into the original nested family. I'm adding a material parameter here, but really, this is just an extrusion that I'm pasting in that I pre-made of this extrusion here.
Oh, you dirty dog. That was a nice trick.
6 inches front, and when I dimension it, I see okay, it's 3'6" tall. Now I'm not going to use this and turn it into a parameter. I'm going to just say height is 3'6". All right, this is not actually controlling any geometry.
It doesn't do anything. So why is it there?
The Revit family, what I've drawn and how.
No, you're not. You're not telling it anything. It's measuring that height automatically. It doesn't matter what you put in there. I will prove that.
I can load that into the Meeple Nest family.
Another planting family.
A planting template.
You got to have a planting inside of a planting. And guess what it just did when you did that? It bloated the file. But this is what I was showing you how to make pumps and things like that, where you just want a bigger pump. No one cares what the actual pump is. It's very beneficial. However, it does make the file size go up.
So we select this
and you have to do this double nesting, which you know me, you think I got good skills. It tripped me up for 8 hours on Tuesday. Made me want to quit doing Revit. The fact that you had to put a planting family inside of a planting family.
I don't know if you caught this. I forgot to change the 19 to a 3'6". So when we finally create our first main family, right, the last step is to create a new family. It could be any family template you want. We're just going to do generic model here, but we're going to then bring Meeple Nest into it.
So now you got a triple nested family. Yeah, good luck. I can't handle triple nesting.
All of these are getting patched together. The parameters are getting linked together. You see here, it came in really big because I hadn't changed that 19-foot thing. So I'm changing 19 feet to 3'6" here. It shrinks down.
Show us that in 3D because it is a cool trick.
Material, I create a material parameter here. So Meeple family has a material property parameter and a height parameter, and both of them are mapped to their nested families.
No, it's just the fact that the planting family has to be double nested. Why don't you lie? And why didn't you do it with the entourage? This is great. That is the whole functionality of my casters I showed you. And like I said, I would make that same mentality for things like little globe valves and stuff, so that you could say that. Did you ever look at like a gate valve? For the small sizes, we have one type, and for the large sizes, it starts to get into the flange type and things like that. You could make it so that thing flexes so that you can see it's a valve, but we control the takeout because that's the important thing, so that we know how long that piece of pipe ends up. And that's how you do it with a planting family. So what this is all talking about is a really great idea.
And so we can see, this isn't about types. We don't have a 3'6" one and a 7-foot one. We have.
Please save that family and tell me what the size of that family was.
And you can see the depth is changing. The whole thing is growing proportionally. Make those little tiny ones. There you go. That's how you make a scaling family.
8 years ago, dude, I was tickled too. Let's
talk about complex geometry.
Uh-oh.
We all know about flexing geometry in place before you start building the geometry. You want your reference planes, your dimensions to all work. You want to be able to move these around and see that nothing's breaking here. But just because you can flex geometry in place doesn't mean you can move entire pieces of geometry from one location to another without weird things happening. You can see that top shade is growing and shrinking. It's not how we intended it to be. It's not what we want. We really just want that entire head of the pendant to move. So that's not good. So what we're going to do is use a nested family.
That's got to be a little app. I need that one.
So let's take all the geometry from that pendant head you modeled, copy it, and paste it into a separate family. From here on out, we're talking nested families a lot. Just heads up, nested families are where it's at in terms of.
That's why we're here, baby.
So we're just placing this here. We don't need to parameterize anything other than the material of the, the pendant itself. It is one of a, one size fits all. You don't need to grow this. This is something a manufacturer sells, so this is what it comes like. And we're just going to load that back into the original pendant light family.
Until they expect you to build it to the submittal, Mikey.
The old geometry, because we don't need that.
Remember the design world? It's so nice living in the design world.
No kidding.
We honestly don't need several of these reference planes because all those were there to try to control the geometry while it was moving. It's irrelevant now. We can clean up this, and so it's easier to read when you're in the family. So we're placing that nested pendant, moving it into the origin point, locking it in place.
You don't need to. It's anchored there.
Front view.
He's overlocking things.
Point where it connects to the
Trevor's
chain
plane.
or rod, is locked into place, and the depth of the pendant is set as its own parameter. And now it can move up and down without any problem because all you're controlling is that it's locking the top of that pendant to that one reference plane. Nothing else is editable. But we'll see if we change the parameter for material here, it's not affecting the pendant because we need to do that passing through, mapping the parameter through process. So we click the button, map it to the pendant material, and now we can see changes we're making in the pendant light family are affecting the nested family as well. Okay, so that's a lot cleaner. Now what this also lets us do, now we've got a pendant head that is its independent family, we can actually swap out parts. We could, instead of having 3 pendant families, have 1 pendant family that's our pendant collection with 3 swappable, heads. This might not be the example that makes the most
Thank
sense
you.
for
Thank
this,
you.
but,
You know you're lying because everything's got to be built to submittal.
or faucet
Building
options,
an extra
sinks,
sophisticated that swaps that stuff out bloats that family. That's what he's not telling you.
placeholder
I'll tell
element,
you.
and have an option to swap out types within that host family. I will say, when I gave this presentation in my firm, 2 days later, somebody randomly reached out and wanted a pendant family that had a bunch of different heads. So it's like, oh my God, I actually created something that's a useful application. So what we're going to do here is take one of these, that pendant, we're going to have a pendant collection family. And we're going to select, we're going to set up types, a gray one, a red one, and a blue one. And we're going to set the materials, to correspond. But when it comes to those heads, we're going to model.
Why are they generic models, buddy?
Its own generic model loaded into.
If you would have made it one of the 13 ones that could rotate, then you could rotate that head on there too, like we often need to do.
Create a parameter.
But if you make it a generic model, you can't.
That is a family type parameter. So we're going to call this pendant head. And we'll set this to be a construction grouping because this is how it's constructed. It has this head. All right, so now we've got a pendant light collection.
Because it puts it at the top of the list, right, Mikey?
And we can start mapping this out. So
that's why we make it construction.
Dark gray head. Our red one, we're going to switch. So it's using the red head. And the blue one, using the blue head. And we've gone through and already adjusted the materials for the pendant body, and we've also adjusted the pendant head depth so that the reference plane at the bottom of the pendant is adjusting based on which pendant you're using, because it's not always the same, and you might want to dimension to the bottom of the pendant or the top of the pendant. So now we load this into a project, and here we saw we had 3 independent pendants. Each one only had 1 type loaded. And it, fills up your project browser a bit. You might have to search, up and down through your list, 3 different places to find your 3 pendants when you really just want them all in one place. So we can delete these one at a time. You can't delete multiple apparently. Yep, delete those, and then we can copy the new family we created, that is the pendant light collection, make 3 instances of this.
Please show us the file size of it.
Type that looks
You
completely
got to
different
do that, buddy.
from one another.
You got to show them if you're over a meg.
All right, so the last thing we're going to be talking about as far as nesting is bidirectional arrays. Now, there may be other uses for this type
Oh,
of
they
family.
wrote
My
one,
mind
them
always goes to
dirty
seating layouts.
bastards.
If you try to make an array of an array within a single family, you're going to have a bad time because of how arrays, when they are parameterized, rely on model groups. So to solve this problem, we're using nested families.
This was definitely worth attending. That's the cubbies that I need to make after this.
We're going to take a chair family. Okay? Just make sure there's a left, right, back, front reference plane in the family,
Yeah.
and we're going to load it into another family. We're going to call this seating X array because this family is just controlling the array along the X axis.
That. I think
So
we
we're
can do
just
better
placing
than
the
that.
chair,
We're going to be testing that with our cubbies.
place, locking it, locking it to the left position, and the front of the seat to the front position. We have a row depth defined, so that we'll be able to space these out with other chairs later. But right now, we just need to make our array. We're going to do a linear array, and we're going to move it to the last position because we want the right side of this to align with the right edge that we're defining. And then we're going to select the number of arrays and label this number of chairs x-axis. And that formula is round down width divided by 2 feet. That's the minimum spacing we want, 2 feet between the chairs. We're rounding down so we don't end up with any overlaps or partial chairs. And you can see as we have less and less space, it takes away chairs to make sure we always maintain that minimum spacing. All right, so now we've got our seating X array.
I need to see
saving
that
it and loading it into our seating layout family. Okay, seating layout family here. And you can see in this family, we've got a width, a depth for the entire seating layout, and then the row depth we had before. All right, so we can go in, place the component, just put it out in place because then we're going to align lock, front chair to front chair, left to left. We're not going to lock right to right. We're going
to because it can't be an instance or it'll break.
Instance property. Yep. So scrolling down to instance, going to width.
Oh, that's going to break. Oh, that's how you fix it.
Of this seating layout family. So when we change the width of the seating layout family, it is adjusting the parameter value of that X array family. Now we've got a family that is adjusting based on the width on its own. Now we can array that family. And we're going to do a linear array again, but this time instead of last position, we're going to go to second position so that we can define that row depth and hold that as a fixed value. So we're locking that to that row depth. We can come in and adjust our row depth. We can make a bigger row and it will adjust the seating, spacing of your layout. But this way you can control that by a single parameter. Now we take the number of rows and label that number of rows. This is just a very simple formula, depth divided by row depth. And that will leave you some extra space in the back, but you always want the extra space in the back. So as that grows, as soon as you get enough room for another row of chairs, it'll add that in. As you take it away, it'll take away chairs. So now we've got a bidirectional array family. We can load it into our project. And yeah, here we go. And we've got these nice little handles we can pull and push as we want to spread the seating out.
Because you made it instance. Tell them because you made it
3D,
instance or you don't know how to get them.
Just define the depth and width numerically.
It's where everyone needs to understand instance versus type is very important when you're making a parameter. If it's instance, it's on that screen. And if it's type, then you don't have as much flexibility. You have to say edit type to change it.
do. I have a few questions. Thank you, Noah,
That was
for
pretty
opening up
good.
for us.
That was pretty
Apologize
good.
for my internet issues there.
I'm glad you're back.
I'm grateful as well. Thank you to have me. I will say thank you, Noah. Awesome presentation. If you guys aren't familiar with Noah, he has presented with the Bimxt online platform before, so he very well may be familiar. He's actually a
I'm gonna write him an
advisor
email.
to the Bimxt Baltimore location. So thanks, Noah, so much. So on our mural,
It was a good presentation for a half hour. That was very good.
which was definitely new to me with the planting family. Can you repeat what was
That's new to you.
special
Just
about the
told you
planting?
we figured that out
So
8
the
years
planting
ago.
family is the only family template that allows for scaling families, and it makes sense.
Where's
You
that
don't-
written?
aren't
It
going-
makes sense, but where is
Oh,
it written?
parameterize it.
And why doesn't Entourage do
Yeah,
that? Because if you go to Entourage, you can change the height and the person will grow, but it doesn't work. We tested it, didn't we, Misty?
It's built in. I don't know why others don't have this option, but similar with a tree, you're not going to have a reference plane where you set the height of the tree, and that reference plane is somehow controlling all the geometry of all.
So in all of that, why can't it be an instance parameter? Why won't they let you change it to an instance parameter?
This tree,
Because if you're putting in a tree, you don't want to make a new type for every size tree. You want to put a bunch of random trees there.
Instances in your project.
But I get it. You work with Autodesk tightly enough that you care. I don't.
You can just do a planting family.
I've been using this software for a decade and a half.
When you want to create other family types, where you need to start doing this nesting. So planting family in a planting family in whatever family type you want it to be defined as.
And I hope
like I
you
said,
drop that out. If you don't do
as
a
well as
planting in a
advisor,
planting, you
very,
will
very
never
cool,
get it to work.
Tips there. Now, another question here: do nested families slow or bog down the model?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say
This
this
is
is my guess.
conditional.
Yeah, this is my guess because if you're eliminating the 3 to the 1 with type, probably smaller overall.
Yeah.
Right. But in terms of a family without a nested component versus with, it is probably just naturally heavier.
Yeah. So I would say forget the pendant light one, but let's think.
Create 1,000 and tell me the answer. I'll show you on Monday.
Yes, if you just have a simple wire pull that you've modeled in your project and that's it, that will be faster than one that has 5 nested options.
No, the 5 nested options is absolutely bad. Don't lie. Evolve is doing it wrong. You shouldn't nest all those. It was a great trick, but it doesn't benefit the end user.
That you're swapping out, like it's
No,
not a lot.
He's lying. There was so much float in the Caesar's Palace electrical file that was using Evolve.
Collection.
This is not true.
Rather than just
I don't mean to offend you, but you're just wrong.
They have this furniture collection family, and they just modeled them all and threw them all in and then controlled visibility on and off. So every instance of this one piece of furniture actually has like 20 pieces of furniture that you can't see. That is going to be heavy. The difference of what I showed with the swapping out parts where you're having a family type parameter is you're not hiding a bunch.
You need to create 1,000 of them. You need to create more than a couple cute ones. I like the cute ones you did. They were great for a half-hour presentation. But you got to create 1,000 before you can say what you're saying. And I don't think you have. Like I said, I'm going to show you on Monday. I'll be glad to share my files with you. And I look forward to talking to you.
In fact, it's probably going to be improved because it's so much more robust.
Yeah.
You're not having independent elements floating around and so forth. A wonderful presentation. For those of you guys who have not joined our mural, you'll see that that's
what do we say, Mikey? Kiss.
Right
Keep
now,
it simple, stupid.
You'll see that
That's right.
If you overcomplicate it, it becomes a problem.
Advisory board to putting this all together and having this wonderful new look. Still similar kind of platform. You'll see over on the left side, we have information about all of those groups. Once again, we have Noah as an advisor to our Bimxt group, as well as our 4 other local groups that meet, as well, of course, as our BIM online platform. All of our advisors are next presenter is Jason. You'll see that he's actually an advisor to the Bimxt group here. And we do have a survey, so please make sure that you fill out our survey, especially if you have any ideas for upcoming presentations. If
I'll
you'd like
send
to
you
get
guys those
presentation,
links if you want them,
or
but I would
or
imagine you
of
got
someone
enough things to
that
do.
has a wonderful presentation that you'd like
I
to
Yeah, I'm
appreciate
good.
you joining. I appreciate you joining
As
me,
you can see,
Mikey.
we do have
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate the heads up.
participants. If you
All
have
right.
not already,
Y'all be good.
go ahead and add in your name and location of where you're calling today.
Oh, there's still a little bit more left.
Oh, there is? Okay.
Yeah, this Jason guy's gonna talk, but you feel free to drop whenever you want. You can
Gotcha.
always come back and watch what I'm gonna record after this, because the problem with his double array is if you need to cut it out of the object, you can't have that as that nested family.
Right.
So I got to see if I can actually do all of that that bidirectional array. I think
So
can
if you
be
have
done.
any information to share, as you can see, Noah.
We're gonna find out, because like I said, I've got to make the first family I'm gonna make when this meeting's over is this thing here, which is a laptop storage. How long would it take you to make that with your skills and what you would typically do to make a family? How long would it take you to make that?
There's comments that we can add to these.
Probably
Just be on.
about,
If we have time in the end,
was that?
we can certainly present them live.
Just be on. Just give me a rough ballpark. If your buddy walked in and threw that submittal on your desk, how long is it gonna take you to build that?
Just a simple family, about an hour.
So
What about you, Misty?
definitely will have an interesting perspective.
Your mute's on.
Different ways of hosting and things like
Definitely
that.
less than an hour.
Less than an
I'm a
hour?
little tired today.
You're on. We'll do that this evening after work.
Yeah, I just have to make it look like that, right?
You just have to make it look like that.
But yeah, I'll get started. So my name is Jason.
I'm gonna actually build it.
All right, I'm gonna run out for just a second. I'll be right back.
Later, buddy.
But I've been doing this for over 20 years now. So these are some tips I've learned over the years to help with MEP families specifically.
Oh, MEP
So
families.
you get requests for content, right? So you find sometimes you build something from scratch. You know, a lot of times I like to start from a manufacturer family because they have something that looks like what you want, right? You don't have to get all into the weeds of what you're building. So what happens when you download that family, right? Does it come in hosted? Is it not hosted? What do you do for your schedules and your tags and things for it to work in your family? So I'm going to go through some of that stuff today. So we're going to start with okay, so you get a family, and MEP families need to be, if they're going to be hosting, they need to be base hosted. So if you download a family and it's, say it's wall hosted or floor hosted or even ceiling hosted, you can't use it because you don't have a live wall, ceiling, or floor in your MEP model. So how do you convert that to a?
Oh, this could be a very good one.
So I created a model, pretty basic, that has a wall, has some walls, a roof, floors, and a ceiling. Okay. What you do, I already put some families in here, right? So I have a plumbing fixture family.
This is the one I learned up in Minnesota,
Then on the ceiling,
and I couldn't remember how to do it.
so if I were to edit one of these,
I'm excited. This was a good meeting to attend.
select it. You can see that this is a ceiling hosted family. Okay.
Turn the ceiling on.
If I were to edit the plumbing fixture one, it's a wall hosted. If I were to edit the receptacle one, that's a floor hosted one. So I load these into this project. I save it, sync wherever it's saved, right? Locally, I have a repository on the ACC project, so I can open it from anywhere. to be able to do this kind of thing on the fly. The file name is just called hosted, right? You can call it whatever you want. And then in turn, I also have a file called FaceBase. So once that's done syncing, we're going to come into that file. Maybe. And the hosted project is linked into this FaceBase project. So I'm just going to reload that. My dialogues tend to get messed up when I switch from my only laptop to having my monitors connected, and it, even with Windows 11, it doesn't resize everything. Anyway, all right, so I
No, that's Autodesk.
loaded that stuff. So what you're going to come in here and do is you're going to copy monitor these things. Right?
That's
So
the step I forgot.
under collaborate, copy monitor, and select the link.
And you can only do that if you have a central file. That's
whatever.
what I
Copy
forgot.
that one. This makes the family live in your project.
Oh, and it starts kicking out errors. That's always a fun thing.
Copy that again.
That's the step I forgot. You have to make it a central file. So that then you can copy monitor.
Project.
So you have to create the hosted object. I can do that. I can do that. Oh, I'm psyched. That was a good one.
So copy the light fixture. And since we can see the receptacle, we'll just copy it from here too. Okay. We're gonna hit finish. Now, if we go to edit family, make sure I don't have that open anymore.
Yeah. How do you figure that one out? Oh, you're looking for the tooltip. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that I guess you could do. That's just so slow. You can't figure it out. This is where you get all twisted. Your brain hurts and you're on this. Oh, I feel for you.
Edit that family.
Copy monitor is a trick. You have to do it with a central file. Doggone, I knew there was a good trick for
And now it
this.
becomes a face hosted family.
Yep.
So over the years, I've done this for many families that were wall-based, ceiling or floor-based, and converted them to a face-based family. Now I can use these as a standard family with some modifications for our content and to be able to use in our models. Additionally, when you
He harvested families.
create a wall-based family into a face-based family, it will become a vertical family
It'll be laying on its
as
back.
opposed to horizontal. Back when, before 2022, lighting fixtures, you couldn't use a nested annotation in the lighting fixture because it didn't have that maintain annotation orientation checkbox. Right? They fixed that in 22. So prior years, a lot of my content was 2016 or 2018 and even 2021. So I had created this the vertical version of lighting fixtures so that I can nest an annotation in that. Now that's not really important anymore because of that maintain annotation orientation checkbox. But if you wanted to make a specific vertical based family, you could use this method to convert a wall base into a vertical base. I did this a long time ago, and Brian Mackey, I'm sure a lot of you know him. He took it a step further and took that vertical family, purged out all the stuff, all the parameters, and made it into a template file so that you can make.
I was just thinking of that.
Using that template file. Okay.
Then you know how I'm having to make all these things laying on their back? This is how I want to make all those millwork. And that's probably how he made the millwork.
I'm under the camp of our family should be hosted in most cases, especially for fixtures and things that go on the wall or ceiling. But anything else doesn't typically get a host. But what happens when you are requested to make something non-hosted? Okay, so I have a couple families open that are hosted. Sometimes this is really simple, right? So you have your host, right? So you don't. This is the host in this family. So we're just going to go to a section view or elevation in family. Doesn't matter which one, right? So most of the time, unlock this. I don't know why that's not locked.
It's the working face. You can't unlock that. Show me something magic here. I have a feeling he's got another magic trick.
All right, so we're going to go to Zoc Center that's hosted. So on the family that you want, like the roof hydrant, right? It's always going to be vertical, and it's hosted to, but not, it's face hosted, but you want them with a host. This works for both families, right? So it can be as simple as just taking that host and moving it up to the reference plane or reference level. Remove your constraints. It's going to tell you extrusion too thin. That's really doesn't really do much. Just delete it. And now your family no longer has a host. When it comes to something that is hosted to a ceiling, because this is a simple family, I can just
Oh, you got to be shitting me.
mirror it because you want it to be. You're putting it in the ceiling or above, and you want it to look correctly. So you want to just mirror it. And so now when you place it, it's going to look correctly. Now, when you get into more complicated families, like maybe a air terminal or something that has a lot of geometry and a lot of dimensions, mirroring it is not going to be as simple. In some cases, you might have to. It might be better just to model that stuff from scratch.
You could rotate it.
Trying to replicate all the dimensions and the strings of that. But you can remove those.
Oh, I'm so glad I came to this meeting. That
Okay.
one trick is so doggone important.
Next thing we're going to talk about is the share parameters. So what do you do when share parameters are needed for schedules, right? So if you were to
He's going to have to use an add-on.
download something, right? It has its own parameters. Let me find the family I have.
That's how you navigate it. That is so awkward, but I wouldn't have thought of that. That's going to help me out.
Usually when I get a new family, I start a new file. Right? So I'm going to do that here. Just so I don't bring that family into the project or my test project, because it brings in all the object styles, materials, and things that I don't necessarily keep. So I'll just do a new project. Power of live demonstration. All right, so then I'm going to load in a family. I'm just going to go find this pump family that I recently worked on, but I'm going to start from scratch. Right. Sometimes these families, like Noah was talking about, have type catalogs. So if you load it into a project, right, whether it's this new project or a different project, it'll let you select those types you want to load. If you just open the family to edit it, it's not going to have any of those types.
Thank you for telling him.
Usually. So I'm pretty sure this one has a type catalog, which has a ton of types, right? So when I'm creating a standard family, with the amount of types that I have here, I would limit it to say one per size change, and then make the changing information instance-based parameters so that the team can change that information on the fly for that type. It's like the electrical data may change with, even if the family size is the same. So just to have one or two types, right? So I'm going to do a 1.5, a 2x2, a 4x4, and a 5x5. Right? So now those types are going to come into my project, and then I can edit the family to start mapping parameters. So I'm a little old school when it comes to mapping parameters. You can use a tool from CTC called Family Processor, which will open, you can map it, but you're still going through and picking the parameters that you want with the parameters that are there. And so it's still an intense process to go through all that stuff. So I just go the old-fashioned way and look at the properties, and I know, something's going to change, like number of poles. This is not always the same parameter between families. So I'm going to edit it. I have a master shared parameter file saved on the server that's easily accessible. Since I do this all the time, it's already mapped in this family. And so I'm just going to go down to my electrical section, look for number of poles. This stuff may or may not change. Sometimes it gives you an answer, like phase typically. I just use an integer, whereas some families use a number of poles parameter, so I have to delete that. And so, knowing what you're looking for and replacing it with what you need before you just batch push anything, right? So
my recommendation on how to make a shared parameter work like he's doing right there, that's a lot easier. Bring your shared parameter in. Tell it that the one that's there equals in the formula, just say equals, then the parameter stays the same, whether it's a real or an integer, and it just equals out.
Putting a blank parameter in there and having it blank, or a new parameter in there and just having it blank, right? I get a lot of questions about, hey, can we just make sure that some of these parameters have information so that the schedules look like they're populated when family's going through. So, as I go through all that, I'll map it, and then I use a tool called Shared Parameter Manager. Oh, that's the wrong one. Shared Parameter Manager from CTC, the Bimxt project suite from CTC's a little pricey. I think it's $1,500 seat or something, but I think it's well worth it if you're doing this a lot. I tried the Diroots one, and I couldn't wrap my head and get it to do what I wanted it to do. So I've been sticking to this one. So with your shared parameter file, you browse to it, right? Again, I'm doing this a lot. So it'll automatically find that location. I just open it. So here in this window, you can add, modify your parameters, delete parameters, regroup them, whatever. But the gem of this tool is that once this is loaded, working off VPN, I guess. All right. So once that is loaded, there's this tab called Load Shared Parameters. Right. So what this does is that you create a selection set of the parameters that you want to add, and then you can save it, and then you can load those parameters into a feature family. So once I have this open in this dialog or in this tab, I can come over here and just hit Open Master, and you don't have to map to it. It just opens it because it's open in the other tab. And so on the left here, you'll get all the parameters that you have in the file. And then in the center area is where your selection set happens.
That's not just me.
All right. So by default, if it's a family that has electrical information, I created this underscore electrical selection set that I would start with. So I would come in here and I would just copy it. I give it a name. And then now I have all those parameters ready to go. And then I just go through the list on the left to pick the parameters that I want from the schedule. Yeah, I have a reference schedule in Excel where the designer may create a schedule. They do it in Excel, and then I come through and look at the headers, and I go through and pick the parameters that I want to use for that schedule before I build it in Revit. And a lot of the parameters between the families are the same, especially all the electrical parameters. Always use designation versus mark, type mark, type things. We have location, so I use space name if it's populated in space, or if you want to manually enter it, this equipment location. So we start with that, and then I pick the parameters, and then I come in here, I make the schedule, and then I take a screenshot of what I need, and then I create all the selection sets, or the selection set for that family schedule that I'm building at the top. Right, so I have things in here for pollution control, roof hoods.
It is the top of the hour, Jason.
VTAX, access. I'm almost done. So once you go through, you select what you want. So this is a pump, right? So pump.
He's worked hard on this. This was a lot of work.
In there. One caveat is that when you push them from the left to the right, it always groups it under other, so you want to make sure you group it back into the group that you want, because that grouping, when it gets loaded into a project, is the grouping for that parameter, regardless of where it's grouped later on. So that once that first family gets loaded in that group, it's always going to be in that group, no matter what group it's in later on. So you just want to make sure that's grouped right. So then you just load, you go through the process. It's not going to replace parameters that already exist with the same name. That's why I go through and pre-map things, because it won't override.
That's exactly why.
So it just goes through the process. It'll error out on the parameters that already exist. And then once the parameters are in there, fill out the information once it's not there, or saved out, clean it up, and that's your family for the for your usage.
That's fantastic. I love the removal of the host. That's of course pain that we all, I'm sure, have had to go through.
The fact that you can make that hosted family on the side, that's the one that's worth the most money.
Terminals to be non-hosted. So it was quite the exercise to go through and remove the host for all those. So as you can see, there's 6 errors because those 6 parameters already existed. And then you just say, okay, close this out. And now and then I would take the family, load it into my what I call it, my test project, where I test the families, make sure they look good, they work with schedules, work with all our tags.
And then you update all the families in the project.
Push it out to the users.
Well, you did get one question in the mural. It may have been answered, I believe, especially with this tool in particular. But of course, Noah went through and made sure all of those were answered. We'll make sure that any others that get added to the board are answered. And thank you all so much for your time today and joining today on Bimxt.
You just want me to answer in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
We will respect everybody's time today and close out for the day. If the presenters could stay on. Thank you guys so much, everybody, for your time.
They're going to have a little rally party.
Recording stopped.
They gonna kick us out? Wonder how long before they kick us out, or if they just expect everyone to drop.
Wish it would let you, like, when you go add comment, you have to go edit it after. It doesn't let you put it in before you get.
I don't see where I get out of this meeting. What am I missing here? Oh, right down here's a little guy in the corner that says leave.
Go onto the mural.
Yeah, when you go right click add comment, it just puts the number and it doesn't give you the pop-up. You would have to go back and edit.
If you could just put it in the yellow box, that would be helpful.
If you
I
just
can't
double
believe
click, create
they're
something,
waiting for everybody to leave. Oh, nope, they did cancel it. I was gonna leave. She was able to close it down. So that was pretty neat. It's actually really, really good if we're going to try to make a family library from all the families that we have from other projects, which is what I'd like to do. But the first thing that I want to do is that guy said that you can't do a polar array, and I disagree with him. Okay. So remember, we're going to create this cubby guy, which I've set the size pretty close. But what I want to do is this guy's going to be a little bit different. He's going to need an extra reference plane right in here. And his name's going to be bottom of cubbies. I like that. All right. We'll need to put a height on that. Which is somewhere about a foot off. Love it. And then this is going to get a label. Height of cubbies. Height of cubbies. All right. Will remain the width. I'll be honest with you. It'd be worth so much more to have that door working the correct way. And to have it working the correct way. And the truth of the matter is, if you watch something that I do and you really want to be able to repeat it, it's really best if you take a stab at it right then. So I'm going to show you that I'm going to live up to that kind of advice. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to create that bidirectional array that I was bragging, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to do that. Well, let's see if I'm right or wrong. Now, it does require us to be a little bit intelligent in how we build that family. But my thought process is I've been struggling so bad and complaining the last 3 days with the fact that the families are laying on their back, and it makes it so hard to understand it. So let's see if we can do what they wanted us to do. So what they wanted us to do, all I should really have to do to make that family, because there is, what he said was there's no family template provided. Brian Mackey realized there was no family template provided, and they still, probably 7 years later, have not added that template. That's reprehensible, that a user solves the problem and the software doesn't. So what we need to do is this was all about the fact that it was a central file. So if you're not familiar with central files, I'd be surprised, because most everyone's probably working on the cloud. So that should be no problem for the average person. But what we want to do is we want to build a file that's got a wall in it. Right? A copy monitor is the trick. So we would need a face-based family. And probably the easiest face-based family you're going to find, they probably have included it in here. Nope, they do not have any plumbing fixtures. So if we went to component and we loaded a model that was from the plumbing group, because they got them all going excited, right? You need a fixture, and what you want is a, what do they call that? A water closet. And I think it works either one. I think I'm going to do the domestic 3D. No. See, so this is a freestanding guy. How about this one? Yeah, see that guy? And that's the one so many architects will start with, and it is so frustrating because you can't copy and paste it out. What he's saying you can do now, in order for this to work, I need to do a copy monitor. In order to do a copy monitor, as I said, file, save as, we need to make this thing into a central file, which is so scary for people, but all it is a file that has work sets available. So we're going to go ahead and do this in this test. Now we'll make a brand new one. Test face based trick. And this is going to be the architecture. Okay. Now that has saved that as a file. To make that a central file, all we do is go to collaborate and activate the work sets. Okay. By putting any, and now I'm not going to go deep into creating work sets. Hopefully you've got enough experience. This now, when it gets saved, it becomes a central file. You'll see the save button is going to go away and it's going to turn into a synchronize with model. All right, so all he's saying you have to do is make another file. You need to link that file in. Where's my link? Way over there. And there's that architectural file. What he's saying, all you have to do is collaborate, copy monitor, select link. Now what? Copy. And that guy is now copy monitored. Now what he said you have to do is just edit this family. Son of a gun. And what it did, oh, that's beyond unbelievable, because when we're building these cabinet doors, what we want to do is we want to be able to put symbology in them, opening arrows, things that are going to scale with the scale of the drawing. This is going to allow us to do that. I cannot believe that. So if I go to the floor plan, so that really needs to be named reference level. I hate when they, a little inside information. Make sure you turn everything on or you're not going to see it. Most importantly, those reference planes, which the reason I say that's so doggone important. Now, it does bring in a little bit of a caveat. See, the hope is that this is not a wall, but this is instead considered a plumbing fixture. That means it's face-based. I forget where he saw it was face. Right here, he saw. See that face-based right there? That's the whole key. All right. Now, that means that I'm going to have to draw this thing backwards. Which that's not going to be acceptable for me. So what I want to know is, can I delete this? Uh-huh. But there's no plane out there. So how does it end up coming in? So what I want to know is, if I create an extrusion, actually, let's just do it. Let's just do this. Let's make sure there's no parameters left behind. There's a bunch. Those are all the connections. Those are only coming in because this is a plumbing fixture. What we actually want this to be is a casework. And I'm going to go right back in there so that you understand that when you change that category, we got rid of those connections. We picked up this information here, which is actually really beneficial because now I can make my material be my finish. I don't need to create a material. And I've got a depth, width, and height. And I need to keep in mind in this project, the width and the length are the same number. All right. So that means if I went to a, now why would you have an exterior? How do you make views in a family? You ever wonder that one? Misty, chime in for a second. Do you ever think about how you make a view in a family? Well, your feedback's terrible. I'm sorry.
I don't. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Just turn it on for a second. What I'm
Yeah,
saying,
I've never had to make a view.
right? But if you go to view, there's nowhere here where I can make a plan view. Right? Look, there's under views, you can't make views.
Yeah, that's why I didn't like it. Yeah, because it's hard. You can't do sections, but you can, I think, right? Can you do? But you can't do views.
So we have to figure that out because these need to be renamed to front, back. Uh-huh. All right, so if that's the case, let's get out of this. We can get out of that. We no longer need that. We got to rename these views. That's a little bit annoying, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. And it doesn't even have a center justification here. So I wonder how much Mackie cleaned that thing up, to be honest with you. What is the name of this reference plane? All right. We don't need anything that tall. We're going to be down here around this height. All right. So if we have an exterior view, if we have a right view, an exterior view, and a floor plan. All right. Heck, I will create a 3D view because I know it can create a 3D view. And I'm just going to get rid of this other guy altogether. Can I delete him? Nope. Can't delete him. He has to stay. Isn't that funny? Bet I can rename them, no? Yeah, and they typically name that 3D view is what the typical is. All right, so my problem that I come into is if I got the right view, a 3D view, let's close all these again. If I have a right view, a 3D view, and what I think would be the front of the building, that would be an exterior, and a floor line, and I go WT, this is actually, you know, that fellow that got on the other day, he said, I had drafting experience and not, but I don't know if that'll be helpful. Trust me, that would be helpful. Ah, so you see what it says right there? It says this side is the exterior. So that means I can't draw on the front view unless I can pull a miracle off. Here's the miracle I want to try to pull off. So that means the exterior view, if this was named correctly, would actually be the back. And if the interior on a typical file, this would be named the front. Right? Now I'm liking it. Now we no longer need these images. And we would find that this back view, if we created, we'll need an extrusion that has some kind of taper. So we can make sure that our orientations are right. Finish. Yep. And let's stretch that height a little bit. All right, see, so there's the first thing, is this view is always going to be showing in the back. And I forget how to change that. But I know that can be changed where we want to typically be looking at this from this view, right? So we can see that this is going to the front. So if this was truly the front view, we would see the thin piece as opposed to us seeing the thick piece. So if we went to the front view, all right, that's great. So now what I want to do is I want to take this guy and I want to put him right. Let's keep him on the weird face that he thinks he's going to go on. Okay. That's weird that it's weird that it snapped to this edge, snaps to the reference plane, but won't snap to this back edge. That leads me to believe this could actually work very good. But the idea is this face-based family, and I'm going to hold it just a hair off the wall. That means that if I put this face-based family in a project, I think it's going to be placed by that exterior face, but it might be going by the interior. So we need a project, right? And if we drew a wall, and a roof, really? Come on. And the roof. And said finish. Went to the 3D view. Good gravy. Been too long since I've drawn and rid of it. Started a project fresh. When's the last time you started a fresh project? I would imagine it's been a while. Load into project. Look at that. It is placing it by that back exterior edge, which I can't control. Right? That's just being held off just a little bit. Right? Can you do an align? You can't even do an align to it. Can you edit it from the back view? All right. All right. Maybe we have a solution. No. All right. You could build it inside the, that still would be going backwards. So what my crazy idea is if you reverse this and you load that into the project, those things should all either flip in and be inside the house now. The question becomes how far inside the house. Now, see this, I can drag that to there and I can, oh, what reference plane is that thing on? Maybe that's the solution. This guy doesn't have a name, right? And he would typically be, we're going to call that the front. And call that the front. Nope. Control C, Control V. All right. So then we can say, edit this guy's work plane. He should already be on front, but we're going to put him on front. All right. So now what happens is if we put the start at 0, and we put this at 8 inches, now we could get to that location, right? But I'm once again just going to push it to there. I want to know if it's going to that back object or the front object. Load into project. Look at that. That puts that right on that wall, doesn't it? All right. So if we say that this is 1 inch and this is 0, now you'll see I can stretch this right and snap it into that place and load it into the project. And go to the 3D, and they should all be snapped right on and of that length. All right. The big part is to the outside. If I take this guy and say this is a -1, that should theoretically mirror the whole situation. So now you're going to see if I load that into the project, I'm going to bet that that flipped it around, right, and flush to the face. So that means that now I can build on this side. This is so awesome. This worked. This is so awesome. All right. So now I would probably set this as minus, you know what? 1 inch isn't bad. So now what I want to know, and this is the crazy part, okay? So now if I go in the front view and I draw myself a box, oh gosh, I'm so excited. Only thing I want to check is I want to make sure that's not going to that imaginary reference level, right? What level is it? It says work plane not associated. So what I need to do is I need to go to my front view and I need to set front. This is the center left right, which that named good. Control V. We're going to make that one center left right. All right. And to be honest with you, we're going to create a reference plane. I think about 1 foot's a good start. Here and here. This is going to be my left. It's always a good idea to name them so we can host stuff to them. And this is going to be my right. Control C, Control V. All right. What happens if I do that and I do maximize 3D extents? That's not really what I wanted. All right, we'll get an extrusion in there before we clean up our reference. We no longer need this and that. And you can't delete them. That's too funny. That's too funny. All right. Over here, we want this guy to be the bottom. And then we're going to name it the bottom. We're going to put a new one in. We're going to throw a dimension on here. Now, the interesting thing is, we're going to do a little bit of a little trick here that I learned. And that is, instead of me calling this the height, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this from, oh, I already did change it to casework. So we already showed you that there's a height available, and it's given as null value, not a 0, but a null. So that means when I change it to height, it's going to make the height. See how it made this 3 feet? See how there's no 0 feet, 0 inches? Because that parameter is actually null. There's no way to make a parameter null once you put a number into it. You can never take it back to null as far as I can tell. Okay, so another thing that's a little bit interesting is if we go edit this parameter, you're going to see that it won't let me change that to an instance parameter. Okay, now if we say change this to another category, I don't care which one, columns, you would see that now if I go into parameters, I only have the height. The only one that had a value is all I have. Now, why that becomes so doggone important is because I can take this guy and I can change him to an instance parameter, change it back to casework, and you're going to see where I couldn't change the parameter a second ago. It's now an instance parameter. So very few people know about that trick. That was a big one when I discovered that one. So when you're trying, and it only happens with the casework, because that's casework's like, well, I'm not going to say that. It happens with anyone where the depth or width or those values, and it can be frustrating. And some of the structural ones will create a new value and work a little bit different. It's where the families are so, they were never really refined. And I don't think anyone ever really figured out exactly how they work because there's been so limited improvement in families in a decade and a half. Okay. But at either rate, I want to show that I can take, that's the height. So since most of my work is going to be done in this front view, I'm going to go ahead and just do my dimensions right there. Right? That should be an equal. This will become my width. Or I'm sorry, yeah, my width, which correlates to the length for this particular manufacturer's designation. All right. Then the depth one, yeah, I think the depth one's important. I'm actually going to make my depth a little bit longer create a reference plane. So you see in this one, I don't see a reason to do the depth part. I have the front, that makes this the back. And you'll see I change it both here and then in the designation, because that's the only way you could host things to it, is if the reference plane is named. The other's telling us that it's the front of the object. All right, so why do that headache? Well, the whole reason I was thinking about doing that headache is if I create an extrusion in my front view, I guess I couldn't switch. Hold on. In my front view, create extrusion. So frustrating. That's like that. Now, this one is the oddball guy, because really I want that thing to be negative. So I'm going to play a little bit of a trick here. First, I'm going to assign it to the depth. Okay. Then I'm going to assign it to a new one, which is the depth calculated. And that one I'm going to make as an analysis, because I'm going to actually write a formula in him. Okay. So the reason I did that is because I want this thing to be actually extruded the inverse of the depth. So I'm going to just put this guy's formula is the depth times -1. And what we would see is now that guy would extrude into that wall. Why did I do that? Okay, I did that because now I've got this fully parametric. Let's just make all of those parameters instances just to reinforce, right? So if we go to the parameters, you're going to see right here, you're going to see that the height only has the word default. That means it's an instance parameter. Okay. We're going to fix that. Well, let's try to fix it here. Let's try to go to edit and go here. Oh, no, I can't change it to instance. Look, click, 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 click. No, please, come on. Okay, so it won't let you do it. Here's what you got to do. You just have to switch to another category. Well, let's go to air terminals this time, just to prove to you that it really doesn't matter. Now go to your parameters. Now, see, air terminals added these other little things, not depth calculated. That was me, but it added the min flow, max flow. And every family has a little bit different what it provides. But you see, when I'm not in there, I can make that an instance. I can make this one an instance. Oh, that's all right. What it's telling me is in order for that to be an instance, my depth calculated needs to be an instance, which will actually make this family work a heck of a lot neater, to be honest with you. At least for showing you. I may take all these instances off here in a minute. Maybe not. Maybe that's an easier way for me to go. So what happens now is if I load this into the project and overwrite the existing and went to the 3D, what you should see is not what well, oh, I know why. Because I didn't do the cut part. That's where I take this thing here and I turn this into a void. And then I cut that face object with that cutting object. And what's happened now is I've made a little thing that will cut holes, right? However, since all of those are instance parameters, I could come to this one here and say this is 2 by 2 by 2. Oh, and I could come down here to calculated. All right. So what happens is I have that calculated one as a formula. Let me go change him for a second just to show you how neat this is. Okay, so we just are going to take that equation off. Control X. Load that into the project. I hate that it always switches back to the view you edited the family from. All right, so now what happens is we'll see that that depth, I could make that be minus 0.5 inches. Oh, that was a little bit longer. See this one here? I can say minus 1 inch. And I've now got an object that can cut holes in there. Right. And what my belief is, and I have a feeling that other people, because I know some people have made some very neat casework families. And to be quite honest, maybe that's a better way for someone to create this library that I'm doing. I don't know how a person would find that person. Let's see. I'm going to change this guy to one by one by one. And I'm see the depth right now isn't actually controlling in any. That's where my problem was. All I needed to have was the depth in there. And we can do this as minus 3 inches. So that is absolutely stupendous information. I'm very disappointed. What is this object? It's a text note. Line to top. How do you edit it? Oh, you can edit it. Huh? Does that mean I can do that? No way. Did you see this? Misty, look at my screen. I can't delete this piece of text. Okay? I'm telling you, I can hit delete. You come up here, you see there's no deleting it, right? Watch this trick. If I simply edit it to be nothing, it's gone. Who would ever think of that one? So the idea is we're trying to make a piece for millwork. So if you ever were doing this and you couldn't delete that text, I wouldn't have thought that would have worked. But I am so excited. What is this thing here? Invisible line. Wonder why there was an invisible line in there. Somebody put a little invisible line in that toilet so that it would hit a cutting plane. That's what that was there for. That was sneaky. That was sneaky. So what we need to make is a cubby. So sort of interesting. We can repeat everything that we've done. Great. If I go, see, if you change this to doors, I think it adds rough height and rough width. See all that extra stuff? I don't want that. Okay. It also adds all of that. So we're going to leave this as casework. It was really hard for me to decide which one of these to pick for a long time, but I'm now beginning to understand what I want to pick it for. So let's just make the simplest thing. Let me put that one equation back to here, and I'm going to actually fix that equation because I want that to cut into my box, and then I want it to leave a 1/2 inch plus 0.5 inches. Okay, that's so my millwork box will work. And then I don't really have any real difficult objects in here. If we go to create an extrusion, right, we should be able to do this. And if I know minus 1.5, yeah, we're just going to do 1 inch. Finish. That would put a 1 inch door. Actually, let's do minus 3/4. That would put a little 3/4 inch door. That means this object here, I'm going to make go -2. This is, remember, my cutting object. Okay, that face-based Gefella. And to be honest with you, we could even play with him a little bit. Would that be beneficial? I do believe it would. Not what you would think you would do, but I'm going to take and I'm going to make a brand new material. Face-based host. Control C. Check on that. Say appearance. Copy. I can't believe that guy didn't copy today. If he didn't copy, he messed up the one that was already there. And make this thing transparent. And I'm thinking we're going to make this somewhere in a yellow zone so that you know that's a weird object. Okay? More importantly, that we can see through it. If I went real quick to my materials, which you, to go right straight back to the materials, what you do is you pick the materials button. It'll remember that last one you were in. And me personally, I think we could give this a heck of a lot more transparency. So you barely know it's there. Okay? But understand, when you're in shaded view or hidden view, you can't see through objects that have transparency on, which is ironically the next thing that we're going to draw. Okay? Next thing that we're going to draw is going to be create, annotate symbolic lines. What the heck are symbolic lines? We'd like a hidden line projection that's underneath casework. So in the project, that's what it would say. Now, I think we're going to go with this methodology, right? Now, I can tell you that that guy is going to fail if I try to flex my model. This is just by many years of experience. And what I know I need to do is I need a dimension from here to there to this one, not that level line, but the reference plane line. And then I tell that thing that it's equal. And I'll be honest with you, I think I can now flex my model. So let's try it. Here we go. We're going to go with 2 and 1. And you'll see that that swing line went with it. You also see over here, see what I'm building is this actual door panel right now. And my method, my thinking is if I make a better door panel, a lot of these cabinets I'm trying to make would be much easier. Okay, so what would be nice in a door is if I was looking at this floor line. Okay, I'm going to go real quick to that other copy of Revit. What they actually name that is reference level. So I'm going to copy that. And here I'm going to name that the same, because basically what I'm making is my template. All right. Pretty interesting. Didn't think that would happen. I noticed in here that I named this guy wrong. And I think the rest are named correctly. Oh, I could have copied the ref level from right there. And now this should match most typical templates. And really what I should do is not go much further. Let's actually do that. Let's do a save as family. We'll go back. Oh, goodness gracious. That's way in a bad spot. All right. So what I need is a template simple face based vertical. Now he's actually going to become a cabinet door. So one of the things, and this is where I say you've already got for the material, you're going to notice I've been creating an, oh, did we not switch this back to casework? We did. Then why is there a material right here that I can't link to? Because it's just a, oh boy, have I got a trial for you. If we take this guy and turn this to one of the, we're going to try a cable tray fitting. Nope. Let me undo that. Let's first take this and see if I can copy the word finish so I don't misspell it or fix anything weird. We now change this to air terminals. We should be able to pick this object, say it's got a parameter on it that's a finish. Do I want that to be by instance? No, we want that to be by type. That's a question you always have to ask yourself. Now, here's where the amazing is. This, we go back in here and this casework, I want to see how it handled the word finish. Uh-huh. You see what it did there? Check that out. What it did was it created a new finish with an underbar X behind it. You're going to find that the structural does that a lot of times. If you try to rename the length or some of the parameters that are default in it, if you try to make them, because what I wanted to be able to do was potentially make that parameter by D by an instance, but you're not going to be able to do that. So it means I'm going to end up with this extra material in all of my families. That's not the end of the day. Okay. What I'll actually end up doing is I'll end up renaming this guy. And I typically name it main and then accessories or those kinds of things because it's the material. You don't want to name it wood because it's going to be a wood door, but then you want a metal door. And now you're assigning metal to wood. That doesn't make any sense. So I've been calling it the main. Maybe I could come up with something better, but as of right now, I've got something that works pretty good. So now, if we guess the only other thing I was going to do was write that door. Let's see, this thing here and this thing here. We wanted those to be hidden line projections. And then what I was doing, typically, I guess you would probably hidden line projections. Oh, you know why that changed to a solid line? Because when you change the category, if that line style category doesn't exist, that's why that dash keeps, and it'll go away every time I switch this. So you got to be real careful about that. But what I was doing was a fancy little thing. Let's see, how did I do that? I went like this. And I said that this was actually the width. Right? That's my door swing. Then you come in here and you create, annotate, symbolic line, then you put yourself a nice arc. Now, we're going to show you how to actually fix this. But I did all the math already somewhere else, so I'm going to do it a little bit of a lazy way. You can see this guy here. We could make that be the width as well. All right. Now the problem is, if I take this line and I pull this in, notice both widths are still being respected. I can now say, how much do we want to open that door by, right? Now, if you're ahead of me, you're saying, well, but Brian, you can't do that because it crashes when it hits 90 degrees. I'm going to show you how we fix that. It's not exactly the best way. I wish I didn't have to do it, but this is going to be the swing angle. Now, you'll notice I typically am going to put that in another location because this is going to be something that I want someone to control. For instance, I put it as a construction. That way it'll be nice and high and top in the top of the list in the properties over here. Okay. Now, all I've got to do is just remember not to type in 90 degrees, and this thing should completely flex. That wasn't very long to build it. So we're going to say File, Save As, Family, and this is just going to be a door. Door single. Now, if we take and go into our other project, we take that door single. Let me see if I can find it. And we drag and drop him. You'll notice that when I put it into a family, I have to actually then load it into the family, which is very, very frustrating. All right. You'll notice that I have the ability to hit the space bar. No, I do not have the ability to hit the space bar. Why not? Oh, wait a second. Well, maybe it did. No, the space bar is not working. All right. So what we'd find is that thing didn't just put a door in, okay? You'll notice up here, it put the door in. It actually shows me that I forgot to take this. And now we could load that into the project and that would be linked. And you see what's happening in here is now I have the ability to say only open that door 45 degrees. Okay. And since this is millwork, I'm only trying to show those. So to be honest with you, you could probably say only show these visibility in my fine detail. Or is it if the object's cut? Okay. Now, if I load that into my project, you're going to see that those swings will go away unless you go to a fine mode. Okay. Now, what you have to understand is my concept is to take this guy's depth, right? That depth parameter right here, that will make it a little bit easier, is equal to the depth of my big gray piece of millwork. So now what you're going to see is it's going to go back, and guess what it's leaving back here? It's leaving a 1/2 inch. Okay, we would find that that's actually a 1/2 inch deep. You would find that I could make this match my material. Bop, bop, bop. How's that go? The material, I couldn't make that a parameter. I had to do it here. And what I want to do, why is that not linkable? That family's not working quite like he's supposed to. Oy. What if I make a brand new, nope, this one, make a brand new material. Call it test. It might have messed it up whenever it turned it to that X creature. We want this to be a material. Right. Load that into the project. And you would like to think that there should be a little plus symbol right there, but it's broken. Might not be the end of the day if we come here and make the test be an instance parameter. Good gracious, you got to play with a lot of stuff because of something that, I'll be honest, there's just too much stuff that's broken. And I really don't think I'm the only one that thinks that way. Now there should be a material over here. And look, now I can link it to the main. And that was the one that was named test. So we can come over here. Oh, this one. We could get rid of this guy, Control C. Let's take that and delete it. Take this guy, make that be named main. Pick on the actual object and make that material be the main. Love how you can apply it to the finish. That's pretty cool. And now we can make that material be equal to main. And the two materials should match. Okay, so now the idea is you could do some very, very simple, like let's say, well, the problem with that, Brian, is I'm not leaving a little bit of a gap inside the door. Well, if I went here, right, and it's going to take me to the front view. Uh-oh. Where is it? There it is. Zoom to heck and back. What the heck? If we offset 1/4 inch, finished, and loaded that in our project, you would now see we've got a little tiny gap all the way around. At this point, I'm done with that family. Sure, I'll save those changes. All right. Now, this gets us to our problem here. How do we make this? And that's where I wonder if those instance parameters are going to hurt us. Well, we can do it twice. So the idea is, and I actually like what they've done. All right, so he did an array. Now, me personally, my recommendation is when you do that array, yes, absolutely use last, but I don't ever like to make that thing go where it belongs. All right, so that's the first sign right there is, can it array itself? And it does appear to have arrayed. Now, this is really important because I needed to know that it was going to cut that object, and it did indeed cut that object. So that means now all we would have to do is align this to that and lock it. Align this one to this and lock it. Align this one to the bottom and lock it. You see now that thing is constrained. Okay. Now we may want to make that, and I will make that offset for the inside piece a little bit smaller so that I'm not cutting through the two edges. I will leave that 1/4 inch cut for us. Okay, so just be patient on that. What we're trying to do is we want this to be a parameter, and this is going to be array horizontal. Right? And we're, I guess, want to type that in. What I like to do is I'm going to then copy that. And you'll understand why in a minute. And we're going to say array horizontal. And then we're going to do the exact same thing again, which is add a parameter. And the one we're actually going to use is array horizontal error trap. Okay, so we don't let it go below 0, that whole little game. And we say, okay. Now, if we go into this family, right, we should be able to pick this door, and we should be able to say that this is a 12-inch by 12-inch. When we finish, the other one should be made the same way. Okay, that's a very important concept, because what we've got to be able to do is we've got to be able to say, we pick that the width is equal to the cubby width. Now, I don't recommend that we're going to put that in dimensions. We're going to put that in the analysis results, because that's where I'm going to run all of my formulas. Okay? So if we know that one, we know as well that this one should probably be, and what did I call it? Cubby width. We'll call this cubby height. The last couple of days, I've really been playing with naming it height and then cubby. But let's just go with that. I'm not want to get sidetracked, because I don't even know if this is going to work. All right. So the reason we did all of that is so that we can then say, both of those are going to become an array. That's all right. Let's not panic. And so that guy's name will actually end up becoming the array vertical, right? So add a parameter, array Oh, did you see that? All right. I know what it's trying to do. It's trying to stretch. That makes sense. That makes sense. So what I need to do right now is I need to hide some objects. Otherwise, I'll be picking the wrong object. All right. There's probably a still couple objects here. Nope. Didn't grab nothing, did it? Doesn't think they're there. All right. So instead of doing what you would think, you want to move from this reference plane up to here. And this is why most people would think this doesn't work. Now let's see if I can do that. All right. So now the question becomes, could I make my array be a 3 by 3? Let's see, this array, I wanted that to be in the analysis results. We're not worried about that right now. Remember, see, we're going to typically hide that. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to know, can I go a 3 by 3 array, please? Nope. 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 Okay. So I have a belief of how I can make that work. Okay. And it goes like this. We have to edit one of those cubbies. So why don't we just put a brand new one in? How about that? Right over here, here's a casework. This should really be named cubby. I want to put this single door in. Interesting. Do not understand why this guy won't rotate. Oh, there's a flip arrow in it somewhere. That could be. That could be. But let's see if we can rotate this. You can rotate it. Okay, so that's cool. What we want to do is we want to edit this. What we want to do is make it a 1 by 1 cubby. And remember, I'm going to have to fix all my symbolic lines, which is a real pain in the butt. But I had to do this because I believe making these instance parameters, which I was just trying to show you how that worked, I think that's causing the problem. We'll find out. And load that into the project. All right. Now, what happens is you'll notice it held all those sizes. It did what I needed it to do. The array can work, but oh, you dirty dog. Well, it can work. It just can't work with that family that started from that vertical hosted object. So that vertical hosted object, there's some other problem there. And what I mean by that is you'll notice here, I don't have a depth, width, and height. Oh, man. Utter disappointment. I can't even tell you how disappointing. Probably about as much disappointment as I am actually excited, because I still think this can be done. I just don't think it can be done with that family that would have made things a lot easier. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit of a trick. Let's try opening my toolkit. Okay. And this, I'm going to basically really be trying to give you a good idea how it works. But my idea was basically to just have some simple objects and be able to copy them into that family and then paste them. Now, I think we can still do this. Let's see. Would that be true? Yeah, I'll be honest. I could probably do it with this single door right here, this one. All right. So what's his name is my question. He's named door underbar single. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that family. I'm going to try something absolutely nuts. Right? He's door underbar single. If I come to this casework in this file, right? We had that casework Did we not have casework? Why did he not come in? Oh, he was at air terminal. Well, let's see. Maybe that would work then. I forgot to change this back to casework. I don't think it will, though. I think it's because those numbers are still blanked out. See, what we're trying to get to is, can I link? See, I can't link. There's no dots here. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to that casework door single, and we're going to name it door underbar single. All right. This will be a tough test. This may not work because those families are hosted in two different directions. So let's see what ends up happening. No, this one, the door single, needs to be loaded in to the cabinet template. Oh, hot dog. Hot dog, but bummer. All right. Maybe we found where that guy's problem came in. That guy's problem came in that, which view is highlighted right now? Over here. Oh, because I renamed it. That's pretty interesting. So I got to unname it. And this is part of the problem with the nested file is if you have a nested file open already, you're not going to see that update. Now watch what happens when I double click on this. We go back to my good one. And what happened was right here, it's checked on to be shared. And that's why it won't let me name it. Now, when I try to do this, it says you can't do that. So this is where what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to him and I'm going to name this blah, 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 or gibberish to know he's bad, right? Now I could load this into the cabinet template. Perfect. We want to put one of those guys in on this face, right? Were we able to hit the space bar? No, it doesn't like the space bar. That I still would like to figure out, but we can solve that problem by going like this and rotating it, okay? So the idea is if you went into this array, you can't actually go into the second array, can you? If you went into this array, yeah, I think it's going to lose all of my locks. I think it's going to lose all of my locks. So my question would be, probably just as easy to go delete these two arrays. We have all those parameters still in there. We just need to lock this stuff down again, right? But what we're after is, can we link this? And we probably could have done it as instances as well, because you can see right there the material was still an instance and it could be locked. The reason instances could be locked but these couldn't was because it was shared, and that does make sense. Okay, so what I want this to be is this should be not the height but the cubby height, and this should not be the width but the cubby width. Oh, I'm excited. This is a good way to earn a break. All right, so now what happens is if I just do those simple little arrays, and I'm going to show you real quick how it doesn't take that much time. Just do an array to the last, Don't know why those surface-based objects, it says it's not going to do it, but it does it. And it does it reliably. I just need to lock that down. Nope. That to this one. This to the bottom. But I would definitely say, see, I'm picking the wrong object there. I'm picking one of my fillets, so I got to be real careful about that because I don't want to do that. Because then it'll give me this, you linking two nested families, it gives you inconsistent results. So it's really best to try to hide those. I don't know why they didn't hide when I did that loop. It has to do with the fact that there's nothing actually drawn. It's just a void. Okay. But at any rate, if we now, let's see, we take that, right? And that guy's all locked down. And we said we didn't care about that. We really like to do this at a little bit of an angle, right? The reason being is that we have to lock this to the top and this to this edge. Now that should allow a bidirectional array, even though they said it couldn't be done in that meeting we were just in. Let's see, this error trap, that actually goes to analysis. I guess it didn't hold that. Say, okay, oh, because I made a new one, that's why. All right, so now what we should be able to do is we should be able to do a 3x3 array. And it's not going to do it. Oh, but I didn't even link those, did I? This is the, maybe that was why. This is the array vertical. All right, so that if that's the case, let's take this thing and let's say make this guy be super high. That's going to be by taking the height. This actually needs to go down to analysis, but he might be correct. We'll see. Go 200 feet, 200 inches. That'll be a nice tall one. Okay. Now we can pull this down. No, we cannot. Height of cubbies. Let's make the height of cubbies and see what that does. Oh, you know what? I did that in dimensions. That's something I want to change. What I want to do though is I want to put that down right after the height. And the height of the cubbies is 150. Okay. Yeah. It does not like them. Well, let's try just nursing it in, because I've noticed that does help. Cubby height. Oh, height of cubbies. 60. Nope. It was 48. Let's go 52. It does not look like it, does it? Well, it's not the end of the day because of what he showed us. So the question becomes, let's ignore the height. Let's assume that you do have to do it as that nested family. Can you do 3 horizontals? All right, I must have never had that selected as horizontals. I believe you can. Take that and go HH. It's cutting the holes. All right. So what that allows you to do, yeah, we will have to use his trick. I'm just curious how that's going to actually work. We actually want to copy all of these parameters into, yep, that's what you want to do. So I want to make this exact same guy over there, which is good. Then I can get all of these weird parameters out of here. That's actually really good. I think I have a solution. So what we've got right here is, do we have the, right here, cubby width? So see, the cubby width would actually be the length, Control V, divided by the number of cubbies, array horizontal, Control C, slash Control V. And what would happen is we would now end up with cubbies Oop. No. If we put in one of these cubbies up here above, we do have it linked. What do we have it linked to? The cubby height and the cubby width. I bet you any money. That's where it's at. 4 minus 1 just happens to be. We got to do the number. And actually what you want to do is this. You don't even want it limited that hard. What you wanted to do is you want to say the array horizontal, Control C, is Control V, which is 16. Now it's going to remove those constraints. Let's see what it actually did. All right. I can live with that because I think you can find this alignment. That's all right. We can delete that guy. Lower a little bit more. I just want to be able to pick that doggone reference plane and the height of the cubbies. This we should be able to actually move up. All we should need is this guy here. Nope, this guy. The whole reason I did that. Remove constraint. All right, so this is that time when I told you that what you have to do is you have to move this guy over to here, and then hopefully align there. And then if we have any luck at all, if we put 4 cubbies in, this thing will work. Nope. Can't hang on to it. What if I try to align? Why does it want to move the 2? You can live with that. We make the cutting object one big object. And then we just fill the doors. As a second, that's 3 nested objects. You don't like to do that. Well, I'd like to try this guy again. And I'll be honest with you, that family I didn't really do any work in. Uh-oh. Where's it saying something? No, I don't want to save that template. This guy here. I don't need that. And I don't need my toolkit. This was the guy we were trying to work with. So we went right, front, and floor plan. It said WT. The question becomes, can I put that in itself? That is a piece of casework. That is hosted. All right. All right. I think I understand what I'm doing here. All right, let's change these 2 doors. That and that go to hidden lines projection. These 2 go to hidden lines projection. Reason these aren't showing their style is because we're not in a fine mode, just in case you were wondering. All of this stuff here, I'd probably change this scale to more like 1.5. Those scales a little bit more reasonable. All right. So this one here, I want to save. Not as door single, though. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that was what it was named. F5. What's my size? F5. door single. We're down at a very small size, so that's good. So now what I want to do is I want to save it as file, save as family. We're going to call this the Cubbies. Okay, now if I open that door signal, and just so I'm not completely, because I will get this all twisted in my head, this is not supposed to have any of that stuff. And it's going to probably be something more like 6 foot by 6 foot. 6 foot by 6 foot. The swing angle can go away. I like the depth calculated. All right. Delete that. Delete that. This should really be the depth calculated. Oh, you can't have a minus number. So this should really be the depth. That would make sense. Then we would see that we're removing so much. Now, that can be a real frustration. My cutting object just got bigger than my property. So right now, I'm just going to make this 1. How did it change both of those? Height 1 by 1. All right. See, I need to make this thing bigger than my object was going to be at 6 foot by 6 foot. Okay. That all seems very reasonable to me. Let's see what happens if I do that and say maximize 3D extents. It didn't do anything, did it? Maximize 3D extents. Does absolutely nothing. I think I see why. Because these are not to their home values. That's why. I hope I'm not chasing my tail on a dead end. See that guy right there? It's been turned into a 2D. That's why the maximized 3D extents didn't seem to have any effect. See, that makes a heck of a lot more sense. That makes more sense. What about up top? Yep, those are good. Those are good. Yep, they all appear to be good. What about this one? Yep, that one's bad. See, if I say, because you can see those dots are somewhere. Who, who the heck knows where? But by maximizing the 3D extents, we should now see that dot's right down there, right there. That turned it into a 3D point, and that turned it into a 3D point. What about this one here? Did it do the same thing? Nope. That was the one I created. All right, so my question becomes, if we don't cut this wall with this object, okay? That is my front face. So now what I want to do is push that other door, that door single into there. That's him. And my idea is if I load this into the project, oh, yep, right there. Create component. And I don't like, it was like I was moving around and then all of a sudden it went to the right angle. And I don't understand why. All right. That's not terrible. All right. So what I'm going to do is I need my those grid lines. This is my little trick for making it so all your grid lines are much better. Is I'm going to go basically around that area, finish just with a simple extrusion. I'm going to go way up here, down below a little bit. I'm then going to go pick everything in this view, everything in this view. I'm not even going to worry about the filter. I'm just going to hover over one of my reference planes or level lines and say maximize. Now, if I delete this object, okay, it went to the face-based object as well, which I can just pull back a little bit. We went way plenty. All right. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to put this guy. And we want to array it because you're seeing it's cutting it. But I might need to get rid of the cut. That might be what's causing that problem. So if we array this like we did, and we're just going to test it real quick. If we want to array to the last, pick. See, maybe that little, no, this is a bad idea really means something. Add parameter. And I'm going to call this the count horizontal. I'm not even going to lock any more than that down. I'm going to change my width and see if this thing breaks. No, it did not break. Wow. This could be good. This could be good. All right. This is where it was breaking before in the horizontal count. If I wanted to put 3 in, okay. Not breaking. All right. So if I put another one of them things in there, let's see, that's under casework. This door single. Why am I naming this parametric? So what you're going to see is if I change, this is why I'm naming it parametric, because right here, I want its width to be equal to the width. No, I want its width to be a new one. That's going to be the cubby width. And the nice part about doing this in the nesting is then it won't be visible in the big one. in my main family. But all I'm really trying to find out is, can I indeed change that? So if I change the cubby width to 2, this is where it was failing. And it did not fail. That is awesome. See, so that tells me that we can say the cubby width, I don't know why it was messing up on the other one. So the cubby width is actually analysis, right? Because I'm about to run an equation on it. So we're going to say that it is equal to the width, Control V, divided by the horizontal count. Divided by the horizontal count. Look at that. Son of a gun. It worked. It worked. There should be no reason I can't lock that and that. See, so now what should happen is I should be able to change the horizontal count to be 4 of these objects. And these objects, it must have been because it was shared or something bizarre. Neat part is, if we edit this group, pick this object, say that it's a 45, give me a perfect time to put the material on it. Right? So now if you know you need a 4, now how bold are we going to go? We're going to call that the cubbies, because that might be the cubbies vertical and then the cubbies horizontal. We'll see. But I really did think that I was able to get this by doing an array. So this becomes the count vertical. So you can understand why that fella who gave the presentation, because he thinks the same thing I thought for a long time, that you couldn't build this double array. Oh, you can't. Sure enough, you can't. All right, so that means we don't want that array. What we now want to see is if we save this file, save as family, cubbies, horizontal, which wouldn't be a bad thing if you wanted a whole row of cubbies all at once, because the question's going to be, can I stick that? Will that cut? And I don't know if it will or not. So if I go F5 over here to my cubbies, where did it save those? Oh, really? Let's try this again. File, save as family, cubbies horizontal, in updated families. What am I looking at? Cabinet, cabinet, cabinet. Why is it not updating? Sure enough, because I didn't click on the screen when I went to hit F5. Wow, that's a pain. So what I need to do is I need to open up my one called Cubbies. Oh, good gravy. All right. And I need to take out I'm actually very glad. Let's see, select all instances visible in the view and delete them. So we go to this guy's 3D view. Question is if it's going to cut that object. That's the question. All right. Well, it sort of held up something. So if we take this guy, which is Cubby's horizontal, and load him into the Cubby's, where's that 3D view at? Must be this one. Oh boy. You see what I see? It did cut that object. That could be like really awesome. Yep, he saved me a bunch of time. I can tell you that. See, because now all we want to do is we just want to array in this direction. Right? Ooh, buddy, why is that group so big? Not sure. This should be count vertical. Count vertical. You see that? Doggone you. It actually tells me something pretty simple. It's that cutting object that's causing the problem. I almost guarantee it. So how can we find out? You'd have to go to here. You'd have to create one of these guys, right? Like that. Edit that family. And there's an extruding object in that one family. A cutting object that I was so excited about using that we should be able to get rid of. Now we need to load that back into our Cubby's horizontal. Now it no longer is cutting. Load that into our Cubby's. Overwrite. I saw it get rid of the cutting object, so that's a good sign. I still don't understand why that thing is so high. Let's see what happens if we do this align. What about this align? See, there's an anchor point that's created by the cut is what happened. So if that's the case, maybe you can do this all in one. Let's see. If we come back to here, so these are no longer all cutting. Can we grab this group? Can we array? No longer going to give me that nasty warning. Can I then take this and align that array? Ha ha ha. So you can do it all in one. And then this becomes, I know I added this a second ago, but I added it to the other spot. So I was right. without that, oh, oh, why there did it have that problem? It shouldn't have been a problem. All right, so we just want to get rid of that array and do what he said. Son of a gun. I would not have thought that was the case. I still wonder what the heck this box is going to. Oh, I know what that box is going to. Watch this. If I take this guy way down here and I pull this actually just a little bit above and a little bit below, it's the size of that overall object. If I load that into my cubby's horizontal and overwrite and load that into my cubby's, I think that group will become much smaller. And hopefully it shouldn't mess up. Nope, didn't become much smaller. We're not going to sweat it. We're going to see if we can. Were we able to get our vertical count? See, that's the problem. It's almost like there's a plane there. What if in this one, in the front view, what if you make this be the insertion point? I wonder if that help anything out. That would go into the cubbies. Nope. This would go into the cubbies horizontal. Right. This, oh, that means that really it would be a good idea. This is the one that was causing that problem. But just for giggles, I'm going to set that to be the insertion point. And load that in the cubbies. Go to this front view. All right, so this guy here, we're also going to get rid of this. And we're actually going to say the height is going to be 1 foot. And then the cubby, which is this door single, don't know which one, I think it was the parametric, right? Its height is going to be equal to the height. Not the cubby width, but the actual height. Okay. Let's see what that does. So this guy, the cubby's horizontal, had a height in it already, and we're going to make that be 1. We might be getting somewhere. Not that. This one. And it's already named count vertical. So the question becomes, can I name that 4 in the vertical? Oh. You know what you could do? an old ancient trick I had where you don't lock the two like that. What you do is you say from this reference plane to here is actually the cubby height. All right. So we're going to say add a parameter, and this is going to be the cubby height. Now the question is, can you make that be 1? And you can. All right, so you can't do the double reference planes like he was thinking. Now, means that we need to do that array as a second. And I do remember a long time ago, we're talking more than a decade ago, of finding that out. So yes, I always have to test it. Does that mean back here in this front row, in this guy here? Okay, that's the front row. What we want to know is, can you take all of that and array that up? Make this say vertical count vertical. And now, you know, ironically, oh, nope, I did that wrong. I need to array that and make that go to the second. Right here, not to the last. Okay. See, so when you do that, theory says you should be able to, no, yeah, I guess I could take any one of those and lock that. So the question becomes, can you put 4? And the answer is yes. Okay, so this is the one that I'm telling you, he didn't think you could do. We could align this. In other words, this is not using that nested family, but you have to use one. You could do the one as last, but you have to do the other one as to the second object. Okay? We want to change this guy to be the cubby height. Cubby. If you can name a reference plane and a parameter the same thing, Control C. We want to take this guy, make a new parameter called the cubby height. Right? Which means we should no longer need this one. We're just going to use this guy all at once. Okay? So really, we should have this, which we know is going to be named. You know what? I don't think that's naming that one. I think that's naming the next one that I'm about to put in. That's why I keep naming this thing twice. I didn't even think about that before. All right. So this is actually going to be the height. Not that. That one. And this guy should be named, the height is 5 foot. 5 foot. Yeah. Right there it is. Cubby height is going to be an analysis. What's it going to be? It's going to be the height divided by Control C divided by Control V. Cross your fingers. All right. That's all right. That's all right. I know what our problem is. Let's see. We don't need this door single anymore because we're not using it. Right here, this was linked to the height, so where that needs to now go to the cubby height. So the question is, believe it or not, could you do an 8 by 8? 8 by 8. And you're going to find the answer is yep. Ah, no. Can you name? Oh, no. Really? Can you name this? Count 8. Nope. Let's check the height. You see where I'm going with this. We need to do that first one as an array. It's where he's locking it down to the two ends is a bad idea. Watch this. I bet this one works. Come on. Yes. So the whole reason he thinks he needs that nested array in order to do a bidirectional and two-directional array is because he's using the last. That was his mistake. That is crazy. So that simply means that since, and ironically, you would think that it would be difficult, but all we're going to do is basically redo this. Okay. But we've already done all the hard math behind it, so it's not as bad as you would think. Watch this. Okay. Do we have that width? We did calculate that width, right? All right. So here's where they went wrong. We need to put that door in. I wonder why now it's rotated around. No, it's not rotated around. Oh, that's where I put the insertion point. So that's actually good. All right. So all you should have to do is not do those arrays to last. Ironically, that would be the one thing. Array, just do your arrays to second. Okay. So we know this one. This one's going to be our horizontal count. Lock this. See, because then you're locking to the same edge, I think is what I found out. The conclusion I came up with, right? And locking that one. And then you can lock this guy as well. This is where he was going off. You don't want to use the align command. You want to use that calculated number. So this is the cubby width. Look at that. It worked. Now you take that whole same thing and array. Once again, I usually do it like this so I can see what's going on. We make this. You see, this is where I'm saying I already have these numbers. This is my count vertical, right? We know what we want to. We want to keep with that same alignment. This to the second and locked. This to the bottom and locked. Now, will this array work? Can I adjust this array? Well, let's try it a second ago, I was able to do it in the one, but not the other. So we're going to go 6 by 6, and you're going to see, yep, no problem. Oh, we have to do it in the 2. You do have to do it in the 2. All right. I swear I got that to work at one time, but it does not appear to work now. So if we delete this, take this guy and ungroup it, take this guy, make it be equal to the cubby width. I had some stuff in here about cubby height. I'm going to remove that. Cubby vertical. Remove that. Say okay. It means that I can now make this be the height. And what I want to do is I want to actually tell it the cubby heights. We're going to make this height be 1. Nope, 10 inches. Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to make the depth. No, the height. How did I get a cubby height? I'm not seeing it. See what I'm looking at right here? How does this have a cubby height? Oh, it doesn't actually have a 10 in there anymore, does it? Which means that this is no longer linked, right? The height got lost, and it needs to go back to the height. And this reference plane is unnecessary. All right. So the one that's named cubbies, we get to do it again. We're going to delete that. We're going to load this into it. The cubbies. Go to a 3D view where I can put it in. Take my cubbies horizontal and I drop it in. Go to the front view of that. It looks like this. We're going to simply do an array. I guess he was right. I eat my words. This should be add parameter, count, vertical. And I know this line, right? I know this one goes to there. This one goes to there. I know this one goes to there. And now all I want to do is say dimension from here to there. And that's going to be a new parameter called D. It's going to be height. Make that and analysis. All right, let's see how this works. So we know we want 6 feet. You just want to say Control C, Control V, divided by the vertical count. Control C, divided by Control V. Say okay. Okay. The only problem is that family, this Cubby's horizontal, we need to make the height be equal to the Cubby height. Right? The depth will be equal to the depth. I mean, it really doesn't matter, does it? Well, we could try it. It's not going to hurt anything. We'll make the depth be, we'll make the depth be equal to the depth. Yeah, the depth will be equal to the depth. The width will be equal to the width. The Cubby width is calculated, but the Cubby count needs to go to this Cubby count. Hit OK. And it should now be working. So if you wanted this thing, wow. If we wanted 4 vertical, or 8, actually, I think this one was a 32-inch or 32 cubby. That should be 32 cubbies. 8 by 4, which you'll see, that's where we started off. So now all I have to do is go back and put a little bit more detail on that face. And theoretically, I'm going to cut that back out. Now that back ends up like this. That back is going to end up being this void that I already have. Let's see, 3D view 1. Right. This guy's probably already related to that. Right? He's already related to the depth. The only thing is we didn't do the cut. And the truth of it is, it's going to be a little bit more see, it becomes a little more challenging to pick him. What you almost have to do is you have to like hide some of these so that you can get that object. That extrusion in the front view, I think what we want to do is we want to do an offset. We want to offset all that stuff by 1/4 inch. And that'll cut that out. And if I really wanted, I could put an offset value so I could change that thickness. What should now happen, give another copy of the Revit. All right, let's close out of that. Let's close out of that. Let's open up. So we start off with our cabinet. Here's my idea. You start off with our cabinet template. And he's not really, I mean, that great of a template, except for you'll see that he has the ability for me to make my size. And this size is going to be 18 by 48 by 60. Okay. That made that shape automatically work. Now, if I take, I need to go make sure I'm saved in the other one. So this is the cubbies. We want to save it. We want to see how bad he has become in size. He's only 576 KB. Not what I was thinking. I would have thought that would have been a lot more. Everyone says, be careful of the arrays. Do we take him? We're going to continue because we're just going to load it into that project. That was all I was trying to do. And you can see this has that same doggone problem where I have to go to a front view and rotate that. Okay. Now we're going to find that we can relate the width of this to what's called the length in my project, because of the designation this company's using. The depth should go to the depth, and the height, where normally we would take it to the height, he's not going to quite be the height. So let's see what happens. Boom, boom, lock. Boom, boom, lock. So if this thing was 60 inches, and I come over here and I look at this and I say 60 inches, look, there's 12 inches up from the bottom. I could do a formula that did that, but understand I have the ability to just go here and just say 60 minus 12 is 48. And it's got the right amount of cubbies. What I now need to do is put in the hardware on top of that, fix the material, and do a little bit more detail. But most importantly, we're going to have a cubbies template that we can quickly adjust. See, I'm going to have to put this little back object on here, which isn't big. Theoretically, I guess, let me see if I can find the Raytech, see what that thing looks like. And that's this one here. Let's see, 2596. Really cool website. I really think it's awesome. Not exactly sure what that lock is, but I'm going to draw the hinge on there. I'm going to draw that lock, and I'm going to poke these perforations in that door skin. Get the materials working. I'm not drawing all these fine lines, but I think that should be enough to capture its essence. And I would hope that what you would understand is that this is where it gets a little bit challenging. Let's see, this is my cabinet template. So what I want to do is I want to save this file, save as family. This is my cabinet template named Cubbies. Oh, I already had one. We're going to call it Dash Cubbies. How about that? How about, oh, I'm trying to rename it there. I'm just so dumb. Dash Cubbies. Close all the unopened views, close that view. I go right, 3D, front, reference level, WT. And now all I have to do is go all the way back to the cubby doors, push that, and I should be good. I think I earned a break. Then I'll push through tonight, see if I can't make a couple dozen more families. You can see I don't have the right material on there. That's where I want to go push all of that. It looks like that lock is that same kind of material. So we might keep that super simple. I think we will. Yeah, I think we will. It does look like I do look rounded. It does look rounded. Well, at any rate, I'm going to go ahead and end this stream. I mean, I'll still be on the line, but at least this video, it's 2.5 hours long. That's a pretty decent distance. We'll see what's next.